I have to say that the new setup with Restream absolutely sucks. Um, just to kick off the show, just so you guys know, I have to reset everything every time I do a new show. The settings for the resolution aren't right since
Oh, God.
we went live. I can't adjust it. The mic usually resets, the background resets. Anyway, welcome to the latest episode of Signals from Mars. I'm your host, Victor, joined by Jeremy, joined by Brad. We're going to be doing our Queensryche special here. We had people vote on their favorite Queensryche albums, and they've released 18 studio albums. No, 17 studio albums,
What?
plus an EP,
Oh,
plus a bunch of live albums. And people have voted for almost everything. Almost. This is the first
almost.
band that we've done where there have been albums left off the list. So, what we're going to do is we're going to kick things off here with an honorable mention. No, not Kansas. It is.
Oh, damn.
It is Take Cover. The album came out November 13th, 2007. Released on Rhino. It is produced by Jason Slater, Mike Stone, Michael Wilton, and Kenny Nemes. So, technically 4 members of the band at that point, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know. Nemes?
No, Jason Slater, Mike Stone. No, I guess Stone.
Mike Stone was in the band.
Yeah, and so was Jason Slater was in the band at one point as well, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Anyway.
Yeah, you got me there.
So this is a covers album where they're covering Pink Floyd, Jesus Christ Superstar, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Buffalo Springfield, the OJs, Queen, Black Sabbath, The Police, Peter Gabriel, Marcelo Alvarez, and Salvatore Letitra, and U2. Now,
no Blue Saraceno?
No Blue Saraceno.
No Kansas.
No Kansas. Here's the thing. They covered Welcome to the Machine, which was done like a few years before that by Shadows Fall, which was kind of like their big introduction to a lot of people. So to me, that made no sense. Some songs that I wouldn't give a shit about hearing covered again. For the Love of Money, who the Bullet Boys had been known for doing. Queen's Innuendo, which fell flat. Neon Nights, which was kind of cool. Synchronicity, which was Red Rain, do we really want to hear them do a Peter Gabriel ballad? And Bullet the Blue Sky, which has been covered by POD and Sepultura, and I don't know how many other bands. Honestly.
The worst thing about that song is that they actually played it live.
Did they?
And they played it. It felt like it lasted 20 minutes. It was probably more like 7 or 8, but it felt like 20. It was just like, God, you guys could be playing one of your songs, but no, you had to play this awful rendition of a song that probably somebody likes. Oh, hey.
Yeah, we're gonna play. We're gonna play a song off of our latest album.
Nathan's gonna say hi.
Hi, boys.
Hey, Nate.
Hi.
How's it going?
Yeah, good.
Greetings from Idaho.
Nice to see you.
Nate's early for the Travis Scott countdown.
Oh, really? What's that about?
That's you pulling your leg.
Hi, Edgar. Well, people that I like? Yeah. Fair enough. All right.
Good to see you, son. Good to see you. All right. He's heading home.
Cool. So as hey, and there is Edgar Winterson. He's already predicting Empire at number 1. We'll see. We'll see.
He's either predicting it or he's hoping for it.
Or he's hoping. There you go.
Yeah.
So You got to see them live, Brad, and we're gonna play a new song off of our new album, the U2 cover. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, that was awful. I was going to say, since we know that there is, how many albums didn't make the list? Our list.
This is that's the only one that was not voted on. Take Cover, which is the
Oh, okay. I was going to say, let's try to guess what the other one was that didn't make it. But
no. It's just
somebody voted for American Soldier. Wow.
Well,
I'll drink to that. Cheers.
So anyway, coming in at number, let me number these so I don't mess this up. Also,
number 16.
No, 18. Coming in at number 18. I said that they've released 17 studio albums, full lengths, but
there's the little one.
I'll just
the
leave
the wee one.
All right, so next album was recorded from February 28th to December 3rd, 2005. Wow, it took them almost a fucking year to record this hunk of shit. Oh my God. Produced by Jason Slater. Somebody earlier today said that it possibly has the worst production that they've ever heard on an album.
Ooh, roast.
Whew.
Yeah, eat turds, Jason.
But oh damn it. I need to scroll. Jeff Tate owns the rights to this. It is Operation Mindcrime 2.
Ooh.
This was such a letdown when it came out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I will pinpoint one specific moment, which I have always talked about. And that is the fact that they have Ronnie James Dio on here playing Dr. X, duetting with Jeff Tate. Ronnie James Dio, known for his devious vocal, like evil vocal at times that he can do, and he's just singing clean on this. And I'm thinking, what's this? Such a missed opportunity. Brad,
who would you like to have heard do Dr. X?
No, that's fine. He could have done Dr. X.
No. Well, okay.
All right.
Fair enough. You're right. He could have played the part better. Rather than,
but I think he was just brought in and told, okay, this is what I want you to do, or either that, or similar to what we've been saying about Maiden for years, where where Kevin Shirley just, we've got Dio, we can't say anything to him just in case we don't want to piss him off, that type of a deal. So I don't know. Jeremy, anything about Operation Mindcrime 2?
Yeah, well, obviously it just wasn't anywhere near Operation Mindcrime. I mean, it was just a mistake, really. I think it's, concept albums for me have to be there to be, they have to be done very well. And we know the very well concept albums that are out there, and we know the ones that are crap. We don't like Judas Priest one, we don't like this one, and we don't like that one. And this is one of those that you just, why would you buy it? You're not going to listen to it all the way through, and you have to be forced to listen to a concept album all the way through. And the worst thing about it is that he's thinking of doing number 3. He's actually planning to do the third one. So he's just announced it recently. So but I mean, coming back to number 2, which is what we're talking about,
I think
get to number 3
is number 2.
Yes, yeah,
there you
go. It was a definite number 2.
I mean, just summing up, I think I just find it boring. I don't. The songs are not classic songs. Whereas obviously we're going to talk. I'm sure later on we might start talking a little bit about Operation Mindcrime. Possibly towards the end of the show, and there's a big difference, isn't there, between the two? It's just
No.
it's just not an album I would ever buy or listen to, really.
Right.
I bought it.
Okay.
Even worse, I went and saw them on a tour where they did all of Operation Mindcrime and then all of this album. And they had actors. They had it set up like a play. The band was off to the side, not even, just like not part of the actual stage. They were up kind of off to the side of the stage. And so these guys, I guess there was a script that went on between songs and stuff, and they acted out all this stuff during the songs. And it was awful. It was, even they ruined Operation Mindcrime for me. I mean, it was like, you want to see the band out there doing their thing. You don't want to see a bunch of actors running around pretending to be the characters in Operation Mindcrime. It was just awful. And then you had to sit through all of Operation Mindcrime 2.
Were the tracks better live than they were on the album?
That's a great question. And I kind of really wonder how, I'm sure they were playing most of that stuff, but there was so many backing tracks, and because of the actors and stuff being on having to be on spot and everything, I'm sure they were playing to a tape through the whole thing. But you didn't feel like you were at a concert at all. It just didn't feel like a concert. And so, I can't say that the songs were better live, because they really weren't. It didn't feel live. So no, I guess is the answer.
Okay.
And I don't think I've ever heard them do any of these songs live other than that.
I think Tate plays some of this live, but anyway.
All
right. Let's keep rolling here. Because we're going to get to the nitty gritty when we get to the top 10. Maybe. Well, we'll see. We'll see how we can move this along. Anyway, at 17, an album that I did buy.
So we both bought it. Yeah.
Yeah, released in March of 2009. Produced once again by Jason Slater, Kelly Gray, Susan Tate, and Kenny Nemes, however you pronounce it. It is American Soldier. This album, again, it's a concept album based on somebody being in the Middle East on tour, a military tour. At the time, I actually listened to this album quite a bit, and I thought that it was not a return to form by the band by any stretch of the imagination, but it was better than a lot of what they had released previous to that. And also, I'll say this. I think that after Chris DeGarmo left, for as sideways as some of those last few DeGarmo albums are, it seemed like after, I don't know, Q2K, they kind of got in a rut and kind of continued to make the same type of album. And I'm not saying crap, but I'm saying that they have the same type of feel, the same type of tempo throughout. It's like them trying to do like alternative metal almost, as opposed to them doing heavy metal, which is what they were known for. And I think American Soldier was kind of them trying to step outside of that. Yeah. So I don't know. I think I was just happy for there to be a new Queensryche album at the time, and I did listen to it quite a bit. Anyway, any opinion on American Soldier from you guys?
Yeah, it fell flat on me. I did see them touring for this album as well, and I can't remember what song they didn't play much from it, but and I can't remember what they did play, but I thought at the time, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to give this album another chance, because the song in this case, they were playing live, and the song, whatever they played, sounded pretty good. So there you go. I just checked out to see if I was playing anything off of Operation Mindcrime 2 on Yard Metal, and I'm not. And I'm only playing one song off of this album, the Killer. So apparently, I like that song.
Am I right in saying that there aren't any real songs off this album that are played now, and that's always a guide to an album, isn't it? Whether an album's really sort of stood the test of time, and it probably hasn't. It has fallen flat, this particular album, and it's not one that you would suddenly think about when you think about the band, really.
Yeah. And I'm gonna say this also, the next album, which is number 16, to me is probably the worst thing they ever released. I don't even have a single song off of this album on my Queensryche playlist, and I went back and listened to it, and I said, surely there's got to be something decent on here.
What is this?
Surely there is not. Dedicated to Chaos.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. This was released June 28th. Hey, this was released on the day my son was born, June 28th, 2011. More of the same production, Kelly Gray, Jason Slater. This was on Roadrunner, which is so surprising, but anyway. This album is just really bad. Like, they have a song on here called What We Do, and what is spelled W-O-T.
Yeah. And Loving You, L-U-V-N-U.
Yeah. What? It should have been What Are You Doing, as opposed to What We Do, because
yeah.
I think my impression is I remember hearing them talk about this album before it came out, and it being a social commentary on what was going on in the world at this point, as far as people just constantly being on their phones. And I think they were going for a lot of, I guess, the way kids texted back then. That's why you get the weird spellings and that. Not that I ever used any of that stuff in my text messages, but I'm weird. I use punctuation and capitals and things.
What's that?
I know, boomer.
All right, next album here. So this is Jeremy, you pointed this out. Again, produced by Jason Slater. And I have to say that I really like, there you have John Rotundo from Hooligan Nation podcast, which I guested on recently. John, thanks for joining us in the chat. But
hey, John.
Yeah, he's saying Mindcrime number 1. We'll see on that. Anyway, so the next album here, this is number 15, was released in April. Okay, Edgar Winterson is saying that Empire was his number 1. Okay.
The funny thing is, it's like we're starting this off by basically talking about how bad Queensryche is.
Yeah.
It's not going to end up that way. I mean, spoiler alert.
No.
We actually do like a lot of their albums.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. And
for
so
good reason too.
The next album here,
I'm going to blame all this on the production team, Victor, because all of these albums that we don't like, they're the same production team, pretty much.
This possibly has the worst production of all time. Because after it came out, right after it came out, it was remixed again. And it was, So this is, on this album, you only have, theoretically, one member of the band. That is Jeff Tate. And it is Frequency Unknown, as in FU. I will say this. I really, 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 really like the song Cold off of this.
Yeah.
It is. Yes. It is very processed. It is very digital, but I think it's a really cool song, and the chorus is very catchy. And I heard that, and I'm like, okay, wow. So even though it's just Jeff Tate, but this had Robert Sarzo on it, if I'm not mistaken. It had Simon Wright. Who's playing on this?
I think Ty Tabor plays on it.
So let's see. Yeah, Kelly Gray. All right, Robert Sarzo, Rudy Sarzo, Simon Wright, Randy Gain, Craig Locicero from Forbidden, Jason Slater, Martin Irigoyen, Evan Bautista. Don't know who either one of them are. Nita Noyer. These are backing vocals. Emily Tate and Miranda Tate. Guest appearances. Yeah, John Levin from Dokken. Chris Canella from Deicide. Ty Tabor.
Yep.
KK Downing. Paul Bostoff. Brad Gillis, Dave Menichetti, and Chris Poland. So, okay. So the original production was Moyer Applebaum, who mastered and remastered it. Okay. And let's see, and then the remix production and all this was done by a bunch of different people. Anthony Fox, I guess is how you pronounce it. I never get his name right. Fred Corey of Cinderella fame. Glenn Fricker, who's got a popular YouTube channel. So, yeah. All right. Anyway. That's FU. I think that was him saying FU to the rest of the members of the band. But all right. John is saying huge letdown, was excited to hear it, and wow, Mindcrime 2, my biggest rock and roll album letdown of all time. There you go. Just remember, we just said this a few moments ago, John. Mindcrime 2 was a huge number 2. So there you go. All right, next album. This is number 14. It is Tribe. All right, this was released July 22nd, 2003. Produced by Queensryche.
Oh, okay.
Wow, so Chris DeGarmo played lead on this, but he wasn't part of the band.
I think he only played on 1 or 2 songs or something. He didn't
plays
play
on 5 tracks. He plays on the album. Yeah. He plays lead guitar on tracks 1 to Open, on Desert Dance, on Falling Behind, on The Art of Life, and Doing Fine. There are, I believe, 2 songs on my Queensryche playlist off of this album. One is Desert Dance, the first single. I like that song, but again, this was Queensryche getting into this alternative metal stuff which is fine. I don't mind that they dipped their toes into this, but it seemed like they didn't leave that territory. Like they recorded 4 albums that sound exactly the same, and they weren't exactly good. You know, they were kind of lame.
Yeah, I mean, Victor, something happened with the band, obviously. When DeGarmo left, everything just kind of fell flat, and it stayed that way. They kind of, I mean, none of their first, 5, 6 albums actually sound the same. I mean, they're really distinct, and not just the production, but also the songs. I mean, the songs are distinctly Queensryche, though, but they're totally different albums. It's kind of like going back to the 70s where bands would put out an album, that would be nothing like the album that came out before it.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were totally cool with it, and we were, as Queensryche fans, we were totally cool with them doing that, not putting out the same album over and over. But that's what they ended up doing. When after DeGarmo left, everything started sounding the same. It wasn't that there was any uniqueness between any of these albums.
I agree. Okay. So at 13, where am I going here? Okay, so at 13, it is the first album with Todd LaTorre. And I have to say that for me, and I think for a lot of people, this kind of returned the band back to what they had done early on. It was more in the vein of what people were looking for, I think. And I don't think anyone had a problem with, again, the band experimenting, because as you're saying, Brad, the first few albums were all different from one another. Yep. But I think they had strayed too far off the path that people were, or at least me, I can speak for myself, to say that, yeah, this isn't what I wanted from this band. And I'm all for them experimenting, but give me something different, as Gene Simmons would say,
give me a new maze every day.
For example.
With a new piece of cheese?
Well, it could be. It could be. Anyway, so what do you guys, Jeremy, what do you think about the Queensryche album that came out in 2013 with Todd LaTorre?
Yeah, well, I think it's just interesting of itself because Todd's playing on it. And so, we were always trying to think, how could they replace Jeff Tate? And then they get a singer in who really does adapt quite well to their music. And I think that's a good thing. Obviously, he's got slight distinctions, and some people always, prefer Jeff. I think it was still a work in progress for the band with him. So, the albums that came after, I think, have been an improvement on that first album. So we'll get to those obviously a little bit later on. But yeah, I agree with you. I think they're starting to return back to something that you really want to listen to again, and that's a good thing because they had a big lull in their career. It's not an album that I immediately go to out of the four, that he's been on now. But it's a decent album.
Yeah, I agree with that. Brad, anything?
Yeah, most of my friends who are big Queensryche people were just, they thought this was like the best thing ever because what they loved about Queensryche was the more metal type stuff and not where they'd gone before, with Jeff Tate after DeGarmo left. And I got to say, I'm like, I'm cool with this. I'm cool with these guys doing their own thing. But I like the style of the music. I think the songs are really weak though, and kind of just bland. They didn't really stick out. They don't have big choruses. They don't, I mean, I liked it, but I didn't love it.
Gotcha.
And I've seen the bands more times with Todd LaTorre than I think I ever saw him with Jeff Tate, which is kind of a crime. A mind crime, maybe?
Well, this leads us to segue into the next album. So, released on November 5th, 1991. I was not expecting so many people to vote for this.
Ooh.
And usually with my lists, with these types of shows, these countdowns, that usually I say no greatest hits, no live albums, but Operation Live Crime was voted on by quite a few people. And as a result, I included it. I mean, the songs speak for themselves. Obviously, it's, all of Operation Mindcrime, plus Lady Wore Black and Roads to Madness. This is something that I've always wanted to own and I've never owned. And when I say owned, I've always wanted to have the VHS or DVD version of this, because I've had friends that have always talked this up so much.
Do you have a VHS player?
Well, I was speaking past tense.
Oh, back in the day.
Yeah,
Okay.
back in the day.
I was going to say, because you could have mine. I'll bring it to you. In fact, if anybody wants the VHS, I would be happy to send it to you. So get down in here in the comments and make some comments and stuff. And yeah.
So Hanu, thank you for joining us. And Hanu is saying, don't create something what's already done, and original Queensryche forever.
Yeah, I agree with Hanu.
Okay. All right. So let's move on from here.
I do have to. Can I make a quick comment about that album? Because I didn't vote for it because the whole live album thing. But this tour that they recorded this on, one of the absolute greatest shows I've ever seen. I got to see him twice on this tour, and yeah, I mean, we could spend a whole show talking about that, but I won't. All I can say is that this is an incredible live recording, and the show itself was just unbelievable. So
cool.
There you go. All right, move on.
All right. Next album here at number 11. So where did this go? Oh, okay, here it is. It's confusing album covers. Released on March 1st, 2019. And this has, whether this is sacrilegious or not to some people, it has some of my favorite Queensryche tracks on it. It's the first to not have Scott Rockenfeld on drums. It is The Verdict.
Ooh.
Todd is doing vocals and drums. Blood of the Levant, and especially Light Years. Light Years is a song that I absolutely love. I mean, I play this song all the time. I think that, as Jeremy said before, the first Queensryche album with Latore was kind of a stepping stone. And I personally think that the last two albums have been really, really good by them. Really a lot closer to what I would love the band to do, but that's just my ignorant opinion. Jeremy, anything to mention about The Verdict?
Yeah, I agree with you with Blood of the Levant. It's one of their best songs that they've ever released. Love that song. I agree with you on Light Years. In fact, I like the first 6 songs on the album. I can listen to them all one after the other. It's like the old side one of an album. It's brilliant. Love it. It does tail off a little bit towards the end, but I think a lot of Queensryche albums do that. Really like this album. Play it, get it out now and again and think, yeah, this is really good. Really dig it. Think that they really thought about the songs that they were doing. So yeah, it's a winner for me. Just a bit surprised it's so low down, because I think it deserves to be a bit higher.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but it is 11 still. That just goes to show the magnitude of what we have in front of us. Don't go pulling a Johan yet. Brad, anything to say about The Verdict?
Yeah, I'm going to say I liked it a lot too, because I'm actually playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 songs off this album on Yard Metal. Holy crap, I must really like this album.
See, so you one more than Jeremy does, because he said the first 6.
Yeah, I threw some later songs in there. I don't know what's going on with that. But yeah, great. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think they're doing, oh, that is nice.
Yeah, my first thought when I was doing this. I'm like, I don't have this on vinyl. Okay, so I had to write it down on a list to look for. Wow.
There you go. Here's the problem, though. Okay, and I know when they came out with this album, they played some of the tracks live, but that was the end of it. You know what I mean? They're not playing any of that. They haven't played any of that stuff live since. I don't think. Not
But
that I've seen.
yeah, I think their issue too is, what are they playing? 45-minute sets usually, or do they
Yeah,
play?
I've seen them headline M3 a couple times, so they're playing it more than an hour. And and I realize that festivals bands have to be really careful about trying to appeal to an audience who isn't just there to see them, and so they'll play the more better known songs.
Yeah.
But I've in all of the festivals I've seen them at, they've played none of the new music, with none of the stuff with Todd, which I think it's too bad. It's too bad. And then warm up slots, the same thing. Yeah, all they play, like we saw them warm up for Judas Priest a couple of years ago, and they were actually really good, but nothing from the Todd version of the band.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to number 10. Number 10 happens to be the second album with Todd LaTorre, Condition Human.
Yep.
Now, this was released on October 2nd, 2015. For me personally, this is my least favorite of the Todd albums. When this came out, I thought that they had taken a step back compared to the first album with him. That said, again, that's just my opinion. I know people that think that they've only gotten better with each Todd album, and that's cool too. So, Brad, what do you think about this one, Condition Human?
I actually did like this album quite a bit. I liked it much better than the first one with Todd.
Okay.
And I did see them tour for this album, headlining. So they played, I think, two songs off it, and they were really good live. So yeah. So maybe that's why this album, I felt stronger about it, because I actually saw them play songs off it.
Oh, okay.
And they were really good live. So
makes sense. Jeremy, you for this one?
Yeah. Just quickly, I mean, I liked it better than the first one by Todd. I thought that they did improve with each album. There's some good songs on it. I don't think it's all great, and there's probably too many songs on it. They just cut off a couple, and 8 or 10 would have been fine. But yeah, I think it was a pretty good album.
You mean you don't like a 15-track album?
Not always. Sometimes.
Well, I guess one of these tracks, The Aftermath, is 59 seconds. But
that's true.
They didn't play that one live.
But you know it. Maybe that's the only Todd era song that they're playing live now. All right. So moving up to number 9. I'm kind of surprised at how far up this one is. But anyway, going back to the Jeff Tate era, this was released on September 14th, 1999. It is Q2K. So now this was one for me that I had to really go back and listen to again. There's stuff off of this that I like, but I haven't listened to this album in years, and I didn't remember much of it at all. Like Tribe has Desert Dance, which I think is a really cool song, and I've gone back to that, or FU Has Cold, for example. This really doesn't have anything that's like, oh, yeah, the album is kind of weak, but there's the one song that I go back to. This didn't have that for me. Jeremy, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I was the same as you. I hadn't heard this for so long that if you asked me to write down all of Queensryche's albums, this would have been probably the one I was searching to remember, even though it's only Q2K. But yeah, I dug it out. I listened to it for the first time in probably since it was released. And at first I thought, no, I don't like this. got through the 2 or 3 tracks. I didn't like it. I
And you
thought,
got the
but
4.
I'll persist. And I started really loving it. I just thought suddenly it opened up into a really great album. And I as I say, I can't say all of it was great, but the bits that I listened to that I liked better than many other albums. It was really, really weird album that,
Okay.
I probably will go back to it again. Loved bits of it.
Okay. Brad, Q2K?
Yeah, I actually like this one quite a bit too. And I listened to it a lot at the time. This is back in the day where, you'd throw a CD in the car, and I had this CD and we listened to it a lot. So that's probably why it ranked so high for me. Also saw them on this tour, and was on this tour because we were members of the fan club. We got to meet the guys after the show.
Okay.
Which was real interesting. Kelly Gray, probably the largest head in rock and roll. We used to think Fee Waybill had the biggest head in rock and roll, but no, Kelly Gray, enormous.
Kabasa.
I don't. This hat here, no, wouldn't work for him.
He was wearing a cowboy hat when I saw him.
I bet has custom made.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So and all those guys, none of them. You talk about how tall all of the Signals from Mars crew is, except for me. I mean, these guys made me look like an NBA player. I mean, they were all about Shelley's height. She thought it was wonderful that she could stare Jeff Tate square in the eyes, because they're the same height. So they're all wee dudes. And,
there you go. Gina's laughing for you.
Thanks, Gene. I appreciate that. Yeah, Gene's not a wee man, not at all. But the guys were really nice. Eddie Jackson was kind of weird. He just seems like a weird dude. Jeff Tate was actually very, very nice. It's just kind of weird. It's weird meeting people. I don't know if you've ever done a meet and greet thing, but it's just kind of odd because you can see all the people just gushing over them, and you don't want to be that person.
Right.
And you try to think, well, what can I ask these guys that's not the same old thing? So I think I went up to, I don't think it was Jeff Tate. I think it was Michael. And I asked him, I said, so what do you think about this chalupa thing that Taco Bell's got? Because it's something they just come out with. And he was like, oh, well, yeah. Says, yeah, well, we eat a Taco Bell once in a while. I said, cool. There you go. So
see that?
That was my break the ice.
You didn't tell him any poison
Chalupa
stories?
album for me. No, I didn't tell them any
Chalupa
poison stories. I figured they weren't there to meet me. No, maybe they were.
They're lost. That's for sure.
Yeah, nice guys, but a weird situation. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so moving on to number 8. Very interesting. So this was recorded all over the place. The album is all over the place. Was recorded in 1996, released March 25th, 1997. Produced by Peter Collins, known for not only working with Queensryche but Rush, and a bunch of other people, Suicidal Tendencies as well, if I'm not mistaken. It is. Here in the Now Frontier. I remember buying this on CD, being so pumped to hear it, and thinking, what is this? Because this album is just so all over the place. Like Sign of the Times is cool, and I think Sign of the Times is kind of that kickoff to that like alternative side to them, where so many songs were just alternative fueled. You, which was a second single, is kind of cool.
That's a good song. Yeah.
and I don't know that there's much more off of this. Let me go to my trusty Queensryche playlist here and figure this out. But Brad, what do you think of this album?
Well, when I first heard it, plus, and I love Peter Collins, but I did not really care for the production on this album at all. The really just flat drums, which that was obviously a thing of the day, and they were chasing that sound where everybody started, no more reverb on drums, and it just left me flat, like the drum sound. But when I saw them live on this tour, they were so damn good. They were like, we just looked at each other after the show and said, "Where are they going next?" We're going. Unfortunately, we had jobs and stuff, so it was New Mexico is where they were going next, so we didn't get to go.
There you go.
But these songs live were fantastic. I'm gonna say, what was the first single? Something
Sign of
about
the Times.
Oh, so that was Sign of the Times. Yeah, I don't. That's probably my least favorite song on this album.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, because I always thought that the captain let go of his veal. I thought that should have been the lyric.
Of his veal instead of the wheel. So I have Sign of the Times, Get a Life, which is a track that I really like as well.
Yep.
You and All I Want, which is kind of like a Beatles sounding song. It was almost like they were trying to be King's X doing the Beatles type thing as opposed to Queensryche doing their own thing. But anyway, Jeremy, what do you think about Here in the Now Frontier?
Yeah, I kind of echo what you guys have said. It's a bit all over the place. Bit surprised it's so high up in the rankings. Obviously, somebody out there really likes it to push it up. It really passed me by, this album. It's not one that was in my top 10, and it's probably not one that would ever be there. But there's a few listenable tracks on, probably one or two that you picked out, Victor. Get a Life, those sort of tracks are okay. They're good.
Yeah.
Victor, do you have the writer's credits handy there? Because I feel like at the time it seemed like this was a really heavy-handed Chris DeGarmo album.
It is. It's Chris DeGarmo wrote every track except for one.
Yeah. Which one was that?
Reach.
Yeah. So Chris at this time, I think he was on his way out.
Yep.
And well, we'll see the previous album, the one before this, and what's going on there as well. So so this is I think this is the album where the band was just not sure what the hell they were doing, where they were going. What I feel like at this point things were kind of spreading out, and rather than coming together. And so this is the album of a band falling apart.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty fair assessment. Let's see. Coming in here at number 7, it is their last album, Digital Noise Alliance, DNA. I listened to this when this came out, and I have this on vinyl. I'm too slothish to pull it out, but I really like this album. Even going back to it, I didn't remember the song titles personally, but I was like, I know that I've listened to this a lot. And I looked at, again, my Queensryche playlist. I'm like, wow, I've listened to a lot of these songs a lot. And I went back and listened to the album again in preparation for this. And I'm like, yep, still really like this album. So, I mean, I'm not surprised that it is number 7 on here. I do think that, again, the verdict may have, I think, Blood of the Levant and Light Years are probably better than anything that's on this album, those two specific tracks. But I think that the album top to bottom is stronger because the rest of the tracks on here are just really good. They kept releasing video after video for this album, and I think it's great. My one hiccup, and we talked about it when it came out. Why are they covering Rebel Yell?
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Is that just on the CD version? It's not on the vinyl, presumably.
It's not on the vinyl. Yeah.
It's supposedly a
So
bonus track.
they shouldn't have bothered adding it onto the CD. There's no point.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's just
Yeah.
why. It's just boring.
why.
It's like, why?
Just why bother? Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, there's no need for it.
I could think of, as much as I enjoy Billy Idol, I can think of, I don't know, 5 or 6 Billy Idol tracks that I'd prefer them to cover that are more, but
hey, let's do our own Billy Idol cover. Come on.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm in.
Anyway, all right. So DNA, Brad, you?
It's my favorite Todd album.
Okay.
It is. And I've seen them after this album, I don't know, 2 or 3 times, and they haven't played a single song off it, which bums me out. Yeah. And this album has the distinct privilege of reminding me of you, Victor. And here's why. Number one, because you like it. But number two, when we went on that cruise where we met you,
yeah,
this is one of the few albums that I downloaded onto my phone.
Oh, wow.
So I listened to this a lot during that time. And so, every time I hear something off this, it makes me think of that time and then hanging out with you and Bilbao. So
very cool.
This album will always hold a special place in my heart for that.
That's why albums are a snapshot and make you remember different events, different parts of of your life. Edgar the Wasteland, that would be interesting. That album is so
wow.
How could I say it? Cyberpunk is a very overlooked Billy Idol album, ahead of its time, in my opinion. It's got some really good tracks on it.
Yeah.
All right, Jeremy, DNA, anything?
Yeah, just that I'm not as keen on it as you guys are. I think that it's very much a similar album to the previous one. I think that also similarly to The Verdict, it tails off badly at the end. I just don't think that it's an album that I like listening to in its entirety. There are very few albums like that. We'll come on to a couple that I probably do later on. And so I just think, it's a decent album. I'm not knocking it. It was in my top 10. I do like certain songs on it, but I'm not overly blown over. I'm not blown over by it. And when I read some of the reports on it, they were quite mixed. There were people, writing reports on it, just like you, Victor, who said that they really like it. And there were reports that I read, reviews, should I say, that were saying it was very average. And I'm probably in the, just above average camp for me.
That's cool. That's really cool, actually.
That's pretty detailed.
I'm actually with that, because I can listen to some albums that I had when I was a kid, and I can actually be in my bedroom and I'd be like, well, I can see myself either sitting there trying to get the quadraphonic sound or laying on my bed and listening to it. It's weird how music can do that, and I can actually smell things too. So luckily, nothing too bad. Yeah.
All right. So moving on here to number 6.
6. Let's go.
Promised Land. Released, and this is so funny because as I'm looking at the dates, things started coming back. Released October 18th, 1994. Recorded between August 92 and May of 94. So it was almost 2 years to record this. Let's not forget it was after the hugely successful Empire. So they're looking for another Silent Lucidity on this album. And this album, again, similar to Here in the Now Frontier, is really kind of all over the place. Even the first single, I Am I, which I've always enjoyed. I don't know that. Have they ever played that song live? Because
yeah.
it's so layered, like the percussion, there's like a million things going on. I'm assuming if they've played it live, they've got a million tracks running with that.
Probably. I've seen them do it live more than once.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I actually think they've done it with Todd LaTorre.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Interesting. I think that this, I mean, it still has some good tracks off of it. But there are other tracks that are really kind of mind-boggling. Like I Am I think is great. Damage, I think, is good.
Damage is the best song on there.
Yeah.
They played that a lot live.
And so my other two songs off of this album that are in my playlist are left field songs. And again, this is their tendency to try to, I think, do King's X, doing the Beatles, which is Lady Jane and Bridge. They're both,
Yeah.
I mean, Bridge is an acoustic song for the most part. Again, I think it's them trying to recapture Silent Lucidity and the popularity of that. The difference is that the lyrics are really kind of harsh with this because it's really about a failed relationship with this was written by DeGarmo, so I guess
Yeah, this is all DeGarmo right here. Yeah, this one, Lady Jane, all DeGarmo.
Yeah.
DeGarmo sings Lady Jane.
Does he?
I think so. Isn't that the one where it's piano?
Yeah.
Yeah, when they did this live, he played the piano and sang it.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which let me tell you about that for a second. The tour on this. I don't know if anybody out there saw this tour. It was the most just surreal, bizarre concert I've ever been to. That was actual concert, not where they had actors out there. They were the actors. They did the whole album.
Did they?
Front to back. Yeah, they front to back. And so we were in Portugal and we were flying back to Salt Lake. It took 22 hours to get home. Spend, I don't know, way too long in JFK. And when we got to Salt Lake, it was like after they had played there. So the next day they're playing in Vegas. So we bought tickets for Vegas. So we flew 22 hours, well, not flying the whole time, but traveled 22 hours, got home, got in the car, drove to Vegas, got there in time to get an In-N-Out burger, and then go to the Thomas and Mack Arena there at UNLV. And Typo Negative was warming up.
Okay.
And they were great. And again, talk about surreal. Just, I mean, those guys, just awesomely weird and wonderful. I mean, Peter Steele is just and then Queensryche comes on, and we had no idea what was going on with this show. But it was, I mean, the stage, it was a set. I mean, it was I mean, at all these like they set up like a little restaurant type area and all these other things in there. But it was around the band. So it was a concert, but yet they were moving around in this thing. Jeff Tate playing saxophone on a couple of songs, which was just weird. And it just, yeah. And then Chris DeGarmo playing just the piano and singing. It was just the weirdest thing ever. I'm glad I saw it. Mm-hmm. But I just walked out of there just going, what the hell are these guys doing? I think what happened was, okay, Empire was so good for them. I don't know how many platinums it did, but they actually had money for the first time. And they took that money to buy homes, whatever, and build a studio and decided we're going to make the album we want to make, kind of thing. We don't have to, chase anything at all. And so that's this album. I consider it just totally self-indulgent, where the band was like, yeah, we want to just do this weird thing. And they did. And there are parts of it that are really good. And overall, yeah, it's just weird.
Trying to see.
Jeremy, what do you think? What do you think of this album?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit all over the place. I just think that it suffers a little bit because of what came before. You know, everybody will always compare it. A lot of the diehards actually like it. They always try, or at least they say they try to force themselves to like it a little bit and say there's a lot of love out there for this album. But really,
That's good.
yeah, it's good. But it's when you know, you're always trying to recreate a great album that's come before, and you never quite get there, and so you're always going to suffer a bit. And I think that's probably what's happened with this one. I think if it stood on its own, maybe it was their first album that they ever released, or after you kind of say, well, that's a great start. Yeah, just a difficult one to fully love, I'd say.
Okay. All right. So moving on to.
Well, I do have to say one other thing about the show, Victor. Okay, so it opened up with IMI. Okay, Jeff Tate's wearing this suit. He's supposed to be, I think, a politician, and so he's running around the stage, and all these reporters are chasing him all over the stage, trying to get quotes from him, and this and that. And at the end of it, they grab him and they tear off his clothes. And all he's wearing at this point is these little tiny leather underwear thing, and that's what he wore for all of Damage. Damage was the next song, and it was hard. That was a hard watch for me. It was I'm like, okay, I don't need, this is way more of Jeff Tate than I want to see. Okay. And I was glad he actually put clothes on after Damaged, but I felt damaged.
Maybe that's what the point was. He was damaging everyone.
Yeah. So just the weirdest thing. I don't know. I wish somebody else is out there. Probably Mike Jones saw them on this tour. I wish he was here because I'd love to hear his side of this.
All right. So coming in at number 5. It is the original Queensryche EP. Consisting of Queen of the Reich, Knight Rider, Blinded, and The Lady Wore Black. 2 of these 4 songs get decent airplay on US radio. Queen of the Reich especially. The Lady Wore Black, gets played every now and then, just, wasn't as much of a staple. But, obviously, after both Mindcrime and Empire, like a lot of other bands, similar to Metallica with the Black Album, similar to Def Leppard with Hysteria, people start to go back and check out the earlier works, and some of those songs end up on radio. So, Brad, was this your introduction to the band, the EP?
Actually not. The next album, the first album is my introduction, but this is during this time when this came out, and I don't think it was easily found in the US. But I know they were playing stuff off of this on KNAC in LA, and my brother had told me about them. At the time, I was a missionary, so I wasn't listening to rock music for a little while there. But when I got home, he's like, "Yeah, you got to find something by these guys, Queensryche, and check them out." He thought that Jeff Tate. He said he's a better Halford than Halford, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting," because I don't think he sounds anything like Halford. Back in the day, maybe because nobody else sounded like that. I can see that, especially on this album, on this EP. But yeah, I think the EP is fantastic, and I don't know that it was actually released here right away. It seems to me there's a story about Kerrang getting a cassette tape of this and making a big deal about it and putting it in the magazine, and then after that, it was like boom, and that led them to getting their record deal. And
Jeremy, go ahead. What do you
Yeah.
think about this?
Yeah, well, I just seem to remember hearing this as the first stuff by Queensryche, so I'm thinking maybe it was through the Kerrang thing, because I definitely heard Queen of the Reich. It was definitely one of the first songs I ever heard by them. I was into this kind of music really before they even erupted on the scene. I mean, it's come out of the sort of new wave of British heavy metal type stuff. It's raw, it's not overproduced. But there is that sort of slightly prog element that's just creeping into their songs, and yet it's still heavy metal, and it just sounded great. It's got some strong guitars on there, but it's also got that sort of basic sort of stuff that I was into at the time in the early '80s. And it's just 4 tracks, but it's great. Yeah, I like it.
So apparently, Kerrang got a hold of the demos for the EP, and they wrote like a big glowing review of it. And due to that, the EP, a lot of people got turned on to the EP, and then they were signed. And at the time when the EP was released, Jeff Tate was in another band called Myth. He had just, he was helping them out by singing on this. And when the EP exploded, he left the other band to stay with Queensryche. So,
have you ever seen the video for Queen of the Reich?
I probably have, but I don't remember it right now.
No, I don't.
Okay, this is everybody's homework assignment here. Go on YouTube when we're done, or after you watch this. You're already on YouTube watching this, so go afterward and watch Queen of the Reich by Queensryche. It's hilarious, hilarious, man.
Really?
I think it goes right in there with Dawkins breaking the chains for ridiculous videos.
All right, so at number 4, 'Tis the Warning.
Ooh.
Released on September 7th, 1984. Recorded in London, actually. Recording at Angel Recording, Audio International, Abbey Road, and Mayfair. Produced by James Guthrie. With the singles Warning and Take Hold of the Flame. Brad, your opinion?
This is the first thing I heard by Queensryche.
Okay.
So this is the album I found. There's the only thing. There was a little record store in West Valley, Utah, that had a fairly decent metal section, a lot of imports and stuff, and they had this album. So I got this, went home, threw it on, and I'm like, what the hell is this? I mean, it was, I mean, at this time, what we had, Quiet Riot doing their thing with their first album, and then this, all that early 80s stuff happening, and then this album, and I thought, man, these guys obviously aren't trying to be like any of these bands that are selling records. I hope these guys are able to sell some records and keep it going, because this is pretty cool stuff. Nothing on this album really jumped out at me as what I would call a hit. I guess Take Hold of the Flame became a big, fairly big song for him. But I love this album. I just love it. I listened to it like crazy, man. Put it on a cassette tape, kept it in my car. I did get to see him on this tour as well, warming up for Kiss.
Oh,
everything ends up coming back to Kiss, doesn't it? I mean, so they were warming up. It was the Animalized tour, and these guys at this point of their career were so well rehearsed, so tight. I mean, the 2 guitar players, Michael Welton, Chris DeGarmo, their work together was fantastic. And I mean, they hit the stage, they had the energy, they were running around, they were playing everything perfectly. Jeff Tate could sing his ass off. And I also thought it was interesting because in the choruses, it's actually DeGarmo that does the high stuff. He does the high harmony over Tate. And they were so good. And then Kiss came on after that, and it was a bit of a letdown. I'm not going to lie. As much as I love Kiss, man, these guys, oh god, they were great. So this is when I knew that this is a band that I'm going to be a fan of for a long time. When I saw them the first time playing on this tour.
Jeremy, your opinion on The Warning?
Yeah, like this album, I think if I can sort of give a bit of an analogy, I think the EP was a bit like the Iron Maiden debut album. This is like Killers, and then they move on, and then they have their Number of the Beast a bit later. It's kind of like, it's a band that's developing their sound, developing what they want to do, and their sort of progressive type style of their elements in there. Thought it was great when it came out. I think it's I just wish they could do this kind of thing now in a way. There's a sort of certain rawness to it, which I like about bands. If anyone had listened at the very beginning when we did this, they might think we don't like Queensryche because we were dissing a lot of their albums. But now we're really getting into those albums that we really enjoy and we'll play again and again. And The Warning is one of those. It's loved by all Queensryche fans, I think, and rightly so. There's a lot to be said for it.
Okay. Number 3. Let's see if we can surprise anyone with number 3. So this was recorded in Canada, California. They've had some big name producers work with them over the years.
Oh, yeah.
So that's really interesting. This was my introduction to them, and I was not into them at all. Album was released on June 27th, 1986. It is Rage to Order. So let me just set this up because it was the video for Gonna Get Close to You.
Oh, God. That was the weirdest thing.
Puffy shirts, just the over-the-top puffy hair.
The hair, the
eye, the eye shade and everything else. I'm like, what the hell is this? Close to you. Are you serious? What is
They
this?
didn't write that song either.
What is this? I was freaking out. I'm like, because there were people telling me these guys are the next big thing. They're going to be, the next Maiden, the next Judas Priest. And I'm like, no, they're not. There's no way that this band is ever going to get any airplay on my radio. There's just no way. But Brad, Rage to Order.
Yeah, I mean, talk about you're right, because I saw the video before the album came out, and I'm like, what are these guys doing? I mean, it's just yeah, something really, really weird happened to that point. I've not heard anybody in the band address this. Like, whose idea was this to wear those outfits, to do that to their hair, to do the makeup? I mean, and it wasn't just for that video either. I mean, it was the whole. I mean, the album. You open it up, it's like, holy crap! What are these the guys that I saw open for Kiss? Is this what Kiss did to them? I don't know what happened here, but I don't know. But now I look back and I applaud them, because it's not like, hey, let's make that album over again kind of a thing. It's like this is a really, really different album than any of the rest of their albums. And there's some great songs on here. Gonna Get Next to You. I don't think I've ever heard them play that live, and I'm okay with that. They didn't write that song.
It's a cover song.
Yeah, it's a cover song. Yeah, what's her name? The Dalbella. Okay. Yeah. I guess she's Canadian. So
it's saying
that's okay. Maybe that's why they recorded part of it in Canada, because of this song.
That's probably why it was pitched. It was probably recorded in one of the same studios or something similar.
Yeah.
So it says the band's management insisted on Queensryche taking an image associated more with glam rock, glam metal, or gothic metal. As a result, the promo photos and album artwork depicted the band members wearing trench coats, heavy makeup, and perms. So blame management. Jeremy, Rage for Order.
Yeah, I guess the look is, we're talking about the mid 1980s here, and a lot of people went for various looks and what have you. And I never really noticed the look at the time. I just heard the music first, so that I suppose maybe the videos didn't translate over in the UK as much. And it was, for me, it was the first time that they really started to write proper songs. Really, really commercial but powerful songs. Walk in the Shadows.
Walk in the Shadows is one of their best songs.
Great song.
Yeah. I Dream in Infrared as well, another great song. They started to think about the songs. What makes a band successful is great songs. You can sound great and you can have that sort of vibe, but if you don't have the songs to go with it, you're not going to be a band that will eventually be talked about on Signals from Mars sometime in the future. And so, this was a real step up of an album, and they found their way, I think, on this album and moved on from there, really. So it gets big thumbs up from me. I think it was probably in my top 3 or whatever as well.
Okay. All right, so we're down to 2, and then there were 2.
Okay, let's see if Edgar's right.
I will say that these 2 albums are the only 2 albums that were on absolutely everybody's list. One of them received almost every vote was a 10. Or almost every point was a number. Vote was a number 1. It was 2 people voted it number 2, and 3 people voted it their 3rd favorite album.
Huh.
Oh,
did anybody? I'm curious, Victor. Did anybody vote Rage for Order as their favorite?
Yes.
Okay, I need to meet that person. Okay,
3 people did.
Wow. Okay, we'll talk about that later. I need a list. Okay.
So anyway, number 2. Where's my information? Oh, here we go.
You forgot which one.
Recorded. Well, let's see.
I know it was produced by Peter Collins.
Why both of them were?
Yeah.
Yes, they were. All right. So there you go. That was pretty good. Edgar wants a drum roll. I can do that for you. Oh no, that's the wrong one.
I think that's actually appropriate as well.
Oh shit. Where do I have my drum roll?
Well, I was trying to do one on the tabletop, but it's not coming through, I guess.
Coming in at number 2. No, okay. Coming in at number 2, released in September of 1990. It is their biggest selling album by far.
Mm-hmm.
Empire.
What an album.
Yeah.
This album. Listen, this album was my number 2. But top to bottom is a great album. I think the only track that I skip off of this is maybe Della Brown.
Huh.
Yep. Everything else off of this. Well, and Silent Lucidity, my bad. I've just heard that so many times that if I never hear that again, because I don't think that represents what I enjoy from the band personally. I mean, I look at everything else on here that I really enjoy. Best I Can, I love. The Thin Line, I love. I was listening to this yesterday and just hearing Jeff Tate, the "Are You Happy Now?" That line, just the way he delivers it, it's like, damn, it's just great. Jet City Woman, Another Rainy Night Without You, I love. Empire, obviously. Resistance, I think, is great. Hand on Heart is great. One and Only, I don't remember.
I love One and Only.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody listening? And Last Time in Paris, which is kind of the song, was on the Ford Fairlane soundtrack, but it came out right before Empire, and it got them on a lot of radio stations at the time. And I remember hearing that and thinking, wow, this sounds nothing like Mindcrime, but it sounds really cool. And I remember at the time them talking about how they're working on something that was going to be really big, and this was more in the direction that they were going in. So, yeah, I think this album is great. It's tremendous. And I love seeing here on Wikipedia how many different places gave all these albums shit reviews where, it's just beyond ridiculous, but whatever. Jeremy, I know you love this album.
Yeah. I mean, I bought the remastered version recently. I'd had it on CD, obviously, when I first got it, and still have the CD. They suddenly started writing brilliant songs. I mean, you've just gone over them. There's no point repeating it. They're all brilliant. For me, it's my favorite album of the lot, simply because it's not a concept album, and I can listen to it in its entirety in one go, and that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. There isn't a song I miss on it. The remastered version, by the way, is absolutely superb. The sound quality is amazing on vinyl. They wrote hits on this album. They wrote, they just raised their game to a level that they couldn't really match again. Obviously, they brought out Mindcrime. We'll talk about that in a minute. But they were peaking, and you can't really get much better than this album. Any band would be proud of an album like this. And for me, it's always going to be my favorite. Can listen to it all the time, and I have seen them once live. They came to London, played outside a festival gig. I think Jeff Tate was with them at the time, and they only did about 6 or 7 songs, but they obviously did about 3 from this, and they were great live as well.
Brad, go ahead.
Yeah, and well put, Jeremy. I think you summed up everything great about this album, and it was definitely their peak. And I just don't think they dealt with success very well. The thing that was holding the band together probably was struggling to be successful. And once they got there, then maybe some of the guys that didn't like the other guys as much, it got to be like, well, why do I have to put up with this anymore?
Right.
But this album, seeing this tour, the guy that played they didn't play everything off this album, but they played most of it, and it was brilliant. I mean, they opened up with Resistance, and man, when they hit the stage with that, it's just like these guys, you just felt like this is the best band in the world right now. These guys, they were so good. Everything was so tight. The backing vocals, the guitars, the drums, Best I Can. They did a little skit during this. They had like a treadmill on the stage, and so part of it, the storyline here is about this guy who was a basketball star, and then he gets shot and ends up in a wheelchair, becomes a writer. So at the beginning, Jeff Tate's dribbling around the stage with a basketball, and he gets on this treadmill and he's running on this thing with the basketball, and then there's a hoop there. and he comes in and lays it up, and he made it in the 2 shows I saw, and I kept thinking, I wonder how many of these shows he doesn't make the shot. Because again, he's only like 5'2". Okay, he's just a wee man. I think it looked like a regulation basket too, but yeah, if you don't like this album, it says more about you. That's all I can say. How can you not like this album? This is fantastic. This is great music. You don't even have to be a heavy metal person to like this album.
Yeah, that's actually, that comes on to what I was going to say. There must be a lot of people out there who have heard, heavy metal music, but they don't get deep into it. And, they'll know Iron Maiden, they know Judas Priest, they know, the bands, Metallica, the bands that are on in the public eye. But if you had to recommend an album by a band they've never heard of before, this is a sort of album you could recommend someone and say, just listen to this. You've never heard them before, but it's just super quality.
Yeah. This also, I was in the hospital at the time when this album came out, and a friend of mine brought me the cassette, and I had a little Walkman that I could listen to, and so I had 2 cassette tapes that people had brought me when I Black album, and the other was this. A lot more than Tear. I liked it so much better. But yeah, so this always takes me back to those times too. I can smell the antiseptics, and I can hear the beeping and stuff in the background. Yeah, this album's huge. This is a great album. Maybe it should have been number 1, Jeremy.
I've made my case for it.
So
I think I can't say anything bad about it. I can't.
Yeah, as you guys are talking, I was looking up the set list for when I saw them back in 2001. And before I said about playing IMI, and it turns out that I saw them play IMI live. How about that? So,
yeah.
So this is the Greatest Hits tour. They played Walk in the Shadows, Roads to Madness, The Lady Wore Black, London, Screaming in Digital, IMI, Damaged, Empire, Silent Lucidity. I almost said what we used to call this song all the time, which is Silent Stupidity. Another Rainy Night Without You, Jet City Woman. Then there was the intro tape with I Remember Now, and then it's Revolution Calling, Spreading the Disease, Electric Realm, The Mission, Sweet Sister Mary, I Don't Believe in Love, My Empty Room, Eyes of a Stranger, Take Hold of the Flame, and Queen of the Reich. I have to think that they didn't play all of these songs because Halford and Maiden were playing before and after.
Man, you got to see that tour?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it was
really
good.
I didn't get to see that tour. I don't think they came to Utah with that production. I would have loved it though.
Yeah, so it looks as if I happened to pick a set list that was extra long there to read off. But the heck is this? All right. Anyway, number 1, we've kind of already given it away. The cat is out of the bag. It is Operation Mindcrime, released in May of 1988. Recorded in Pennsylvania and Quebec, Canada. Recorded by Peter Collins. It's funny that it says singles, Eyes of a Stranger, and I Don't Believe in Love, because there were videos for a lot more than that. Revolution Calling had a video. Spreading the Disease had a video. The Needle Lies had a video. Breaking the Silence had a video. And there was a live video for either The Mission or, I think it was The Mission was the live track. which may have come off of Live Crime. But anyway, again, at this time, I was still in my hater phase. And I was like, yeah, there's no way these guys are going to be big. There's no way, blah, blah, blah. Dial MTV was playing the track Eyes of a Stranger all the time. It was voted number 1. And I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like this track, blah, blah, blah. You know, I wasn't having it. I Don't Believe in Love came out. And still, I mean, I was leaning more towards into it. I'm like, do I really like this band? I can't like this band. I've never liked this band. So I can't, just dumb shit. And then all of a sudden, a video for Revolution Calling comes out, and I'm watching it. I think I was getting ready I was in high school. And I heard, I'm like, what garbage are they putting out now? And I'm listening to the song. I'm listening to the lyrics. I'm like, wow, these lyrics are actually really cool. And then it gets to the chorus. I'm like, that's a cool chorus. So I was sold. Revolution Calling is the song that made me a Queensryche fan.
Mm.
And as a result, this was the second CD I ever owned. The first CD I got was Back for the Attack by Dokken because it was $7 and it was the cheapest thing I could pick up. And Revolution Calling got stuck in my head. I was around the time of my birthday, and I went out and got this album and have loved it ever since. This is an album that is a huge part of the soundtrack of my life because I listen to it. I still listen to it all the time. I really like Empire, and that's the thing. Empire's an album that every time that I go back to it, I think, why didn't I listen to this more? Because I really like Operation Mindcrime.
Mhm.
The other thing, too, is as I was receiving a list today, the person that was sending it to me said, it's a shame that they kind of peaked with these 2 albums, where they really peaked early on, and they've put out a lot of stuff that really is nowhere near the level of what they did on these 2 albums. And I think that is very true. I often talk about the fact that a new album doesn't need to be the favorite or your best or whatnot, but they've released so much subpar material that a lot of just samey music that makes you think, how could this be the same band? Oh, wait, it isn't because Chris DeGarmo wasn't around. Oh, it isn't because this or that was going on. And I think you're right, Brad, with your assessment on Promised Land. I think that they put up with a lot of shit. They were with each other so much. They were fighting. They were hungry. And then finally, they got the money that they wanted. And they said, fuck it. We don't have to please anyone else. We're just going to please ourselves. And hey, if you don't like the track, I don't care because this is going to be, my track. Chris DeGarmo leaving Queensryche is almost as if Steve Harris would have left Iron Maiden.
Totally. They were, I've seen them, well, as you know, so many times with him, and every time without him, nothing without him has even come close to the same feeling that you got when he was in the band. And it wasn't just him, it was just the unit. Those guys were working so well together. You just felt like, God, these guys, they're brothers, which apparently they're not. But at that time they were all on the same, they were all pulling on the same side of the rope together.
Right.
Up until after Empire, I think. And I don't know. What we need, Jeremy, we need somebody from Rock Candy to get a hold of somebody in this band, or maybe 3 people in this band, and do a big discussion about recording Promised Land and what was really going on with the band at that time.
Yeah.
Or maybe we could do that, Victor. Come on.
There you go.
You've interviewed Michael Wilton. He was which by the way, that's the absolute best Michael Wilton interview I've ever heard, and I've heard a few. And he usually doesn't chat much at all. But with you, he was really quite lively, and you, of course, asked great questions. So,
well,
maybe you're the man for the job.
I appreciate that, and sure, if I were able to interview him again, I'm sure Promised Land would be something that would be brought up.
But we need Jeff Tate's version too, and then we got to get Chris DeGarmo. It's like, dude, let's just talk about this. Come on, you can do it. I know you don't want to be in the band and all that kind of stuff. You want to just fly airplanes, but come on, there's got to be part of your heart that wants to talk about these albums. How could you not?
I think we'd have to buy a ticket on one of his flights.
I'm in. Let's go. Hey, Chris, you ever fly to Spain? Let's go.
There you go.
We got to stop in Manchester first, though, and pick up somebody.
There is an airport.
All right.
Jeremy, your thoughts on Operation Mindcrime?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a classic. It's one of the best concept albums that's probably been produced by any band, I guess. It's very popular amongst the fans. It's always rated as their best by many people, and probably by many in your own poll as well, Victor. The only reason why I didn't have it as my number one, I'm not so keen on concept albums. Because you have to listen to them from beginning to end. I do obviously love, a handful of songs on this, which I think are amongst their best, and that's why it's a brilliant album. But it's not, it's not my first choice. And sometimes when I'm listening to it, there are one or two songs on it that don't particularly resonate with me, because I think you have to invest your time in the story. You got to invest your time in that story that they're doing. But they push themselves to the limit on both Empire and this album, and then they peaked, and they never achieved the greatness of these two. So yeah, it's a great album. I understand why it's number one. Wasn't my number one, but obviously it was my number two. So it's great. Yeah.
That's what my question was, Jeremy. Where did this rank for you? But number two, I don't see these two albums, Empire and this one, are both just tremendous. It's it's hard to. I get what you're saying though. It's like when I hear them play songs off of this live, to me, it's not as magical being pulled out of the album and just being put into a live set as it was that first time I saw them do the entire album front to back live. That was unbelievable. God, Jeff Tate was such a good singer back then. Not that he's not a great singer now, but he was so good back then. I mean, he hit this stuff without effort at all. He was just nailing it. And the whole band. Oh, now, and it's not that they don't sound good now. Todd LaTorre is fantastic, but there's no magic on stage. There's just no magic. Those guys just stand there. They look like they'd rather be somewhere else when they're playing now. Michael Wilton especially. He looks about as bored as I've ever seen him. And I mean, a lot of the times these guys, I saw them once where in between songs, everybody would leave the stage. And then, they'd have like a little intro thing for the next song, and they'd come walking out. And I mean, it was just like, where are you guys going?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to go backstage, get a beverage real quick, and then come back. And that was just like, they looked like they just did not want to be there. Anyway, I love Queensryche. I love what they did. I wish they still had the same magic now, but they don't. And it ain't coming back. Even if they got back together with all the original guys, it probably wouldn't be as good. So,
yeah.
But these two albums here, Empire and Operation Mindcrime,
they're Runaway 1 and 2. There were no other albums that came close. 2 and 3, Rage for Order and The Warning, were separated by a little. So it was kind of back and forth with the two of them. But then after those two, the next thing is the EP, I think.
Yep, the EP.
And they got double what the EP got. So I think the bread and butter of those first 4 albums, and then after that, there's good stuff in between there, but it's just not at that same level.
No.
It's unfortunate, and I think you guys mentioned it. We want to talk positive about this band and the catalog, but there are some huge missteps, and I do think that they will be the first to admit it, given that what happened with them bringing Todd into the band and wanting to go back and more of a classic direction. But I don't know.
But the good thing is they're releasing good music again now, and it's you want to listen to the last couple of albums, and you're eager to hear some more, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
all right.
Put,
so awesome. We'll end it on that. I do want to thank Jeremy and Brad for joining me live. Want to thank Edgar Winterson. Want to thank John from Hooligan Nation for joining us. Hanu, who joined us there briefly. Thanks all you guys for your support and for being here tonight. Next week we will have an interview with Jason McMaster. Really cool.
Very nice guy.
And and then after that, Jeremy and I will be back to talk about albums that came out in the month of November, and probably recap a little December, get you guys ready for the end of year countdown, which we're probably going to be doing on the 27th. So we'll see. Anyway, once again, thank you, folks. And we will see you next time right here on Signals from Mars. See you, folks.
Thank you for watching the Signals from Mars live stream. You can watch the show live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, or check out replays on YouTube. Go to signalsfrommars.com for more information. This concludes our show.